Welcome to International Ball Facebook Live. Today, I have the great pleasure of hosting a roundtable discussion around the emergence of the new BeNe League. I have the great pleasure of hosting a roundtable of coaches and management of professional basketball in Europe, starting off with Tom Rajabzadeh, Pascal Angillis, Terence Stansbury, and Mario Hendriks. Gentlemen, welcome. How's everybody doing?
Good. Fine. Good.
Great. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for having us here.
Always a pleasure. So the subject of conversation today is, regards to the December 10th announcement that the Belgian Pro Basketball League and the Dutch Basketball League would merge to form a new multinational league. It's apparent that almost all the clubs have voted for this on both sides. And so we're going to cover the pros and cons and just have a conversation in regards to the potential of the new league. Tom, let's start with you. I mean, you're based out of Belgium. I guess everybody is, but aside from me here in Toronto. But I'm just curious as to what you have heard regards to the new BeNe League and
France here.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard sort of what everyone has heard. I think this has sort of been under discussion for, correct me if I'm wrong, to the other guests, for maybe about 10 years. That I think there's been sort of a discussion and a need to try to do something to improve just the general professionalism and increase the amount of teams and stability of basketball, certainly in Belgium, but also in Holland.
Pascal, what have you heard, and what's your take on the new BeNe League?
Well, except for one team in Belgium, all the teams were in favor of starting up the league. The only team that really didn't care for it is Liège. So I think there was in any event, both leagues needed a boost because interest is going down because of the format. Not a whole lot of teams, especially Belgium, 9 teams. Everybody's been playing each other 4 to 9 times every season. And so, this BeNe League opens up at least just a bunch of new teams and a breath of fresh air. And I think that was the main intake for doing that.
Excellent. Terence, you have been spending a lot of time in Europe since your former NBA days. What do you hear there on the ground?
Well, actually, first of all, I like to say it is a great thing for me, the competition between the Benelux countries. At one point, they were also talking about Luxembourg entering a league years ago, I think in the beginning of this talk, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. But now that it's possible that it may become a reality next season, I think it's great for basketball in the Benelux. There has been some problems with stability and budget problems with teams in the Netherlands and in Belgium in the past 10 years. And this could be the solution to have one league where no teams go down and have more than 10 or 12 teams, possibly 18, 20 teams. Who knows in the future? I think it's a great thing. It'll be good for the fans and it'll be good for the players, and many possibilities for players, management, and coaches.
Well put, Mr. Hendriks.
Yeah, I think most of it is already said by my colleagues. And I think it's a long-term goal of Tom van Keren, the general manager, and the guys within the league. To open up some new opportunities on basketball side and business side together. So I think, I think it's a good thing, and let's hope it's a new start, especially for a lot of basketball in the two countries.
Yes, indeed. I'm curious in terms of the is if this formation of the new league that's emerging, is this possibly has to do because of the economical impact of COVID-19, or this has been already in discussion in previous years and has been in plan before execution? We'll just go similarly as the same around the table, starting with TJ.
Yeah, no, I think it's I don't think so much. I think they've had the discussion about this, like I said, or the idea that for about 10 years. The original discussions was including Luxembourg, as Terence had said, has already stated. But no, I just think that it's due to the fact that the game schedules, teams having to play each other so frequently, not having even number teams, so there's always a bye week. And I think the Netherlands league over the last sort of 8, 9, 10 years has like sort of slowly started to digress and go down a little bit. Of course, you have your top teams, Groningen and Leiden and Den Bosch. I mean, these teams are obviously in the formation of this new league next season will be competitive in this new league. But after that, I think there's going to be, I think everyone is expecting that there's going to be some really difficult games and some games that are not that evenly matched. But I think that hopefully if they get the right governance and the right criteria and they build on that over the course of 3, 4, 5 years and get a financial plan together where everyone's kind of performing and competing, will get to perform and compete on an even level. I think that it has, like I think the other panelists have said, a great opportunity for development of the clubs and especially opportunities and development for players.
Pascal, your view on the whether this conversation has a root and how it's or is this just because of the COVID-19?
Well, they were talking about this before COVID-19 started, so maybe COVID-19 had a hand in accelerating the whole process because last year I remember the discussion was almost dead on this subject. I think for sure what's happening is a lot of teams are financially in very bad situation in both countries, and I don't see how in the BeNe League all of a sudden that would change. So I think from a financial standpoint, I think it's even going to put some more strain on some teams because now you have to take into account that your road games are going to be much further away. So it's going to cost you more as far as getting from your gym to whatever gym you're playing. If you're in Mons, you go to Groningen, and that's going to be a 7-hour trip. And that's going to cost you more money. So I think some teams are going to have to allocate more budget onto that. The other part of it is obviously teams think that as far as attracting sponsors, they would do better because now there's a larger market of potential clients for those sponsors. So that's a possibility. But there again, about half the teams are French speaking in the Belgium League or from the French part. So, you have to see how that works out with the sponsors. I think as far as the playing level, I'm not sure it's going to raise the level of the league. Holland has about, if you take Zwolle, you take Groningen, you take Leiden, and probably Den Bosch. They can compete with the sort of top 3, 4, and then there'll still be a big gap there. But again, I don't think it'll be worse than staying in your own country. I think it's a necessary move to try to advance.
Terence, your views on the subject?
I would rather that you get Mario first, because in management, he would want to talk, and instead of going the same way around, to hear him and then I'll go afterwards, if possible.
Sure. Mr. Hendriks.
Instead of having him be last all the time, he's sitting there waiting,
I think you have to unmute. Yeah.
I think, Tom, that COVID only accelerated the process and brought some people maybe together and stressed the urgency of some issues, like Pascal already told us. I think the concerns about money, traveling costs, etc., they will be even more. But okay. I think the situation right now is a situation of opportunities and chances. And on the other side, I think it's also a moment that clubs have to be honest. And I hope, just looking at it from a helicopter view, I hope that the guys who are responsible in the league, that they make sure they create healthy situations, because in the long term, the situation in Belgium and the Netherlands will be only better if you get clear and healthy teams, and I mean then in a management and a financial way. So I think it's an opportunity to upgrade, but on the other side, you also have to take into account that it will take several years to build that up. So that's my idea about it.
Okay. Yes, I kind of agree with everyone has said so far. And COVID isn't the reason why we have the league. It may be the reason that it's accelerating and it's going to start next season. But for me, when I heard about it really becoming a reality, because I've heard people mention this more than 10 years, almost 20 years ago, honestly, kind of around the period that the Bosman rule came into effect and gave new opportunities for all the European countries to have players from each European country into their leagues. This is a similar situation for the lowland countries in the Benelux. The opportunities are endless here, but I think the key is the long-term plan with patience. And since these countries normally already have leagues where teams don't go down, they get into the league based on their budget and the budgetary demands of the federations. The possibilities are great here for everyone, but you need patience with the development of the youth players. You need patience in the development of your professional clubs during this season, that you don't make quick decisions based on the fact that you may have a small budget and you can struggle during the season and change and stick with the management that you have, the coaching staff, and have like a long-term vision, and hoping that this would be a league that develops like the French leagues have developed over years, like the Spanish league has developed over years, and some of the better leagues in Europe. This could be a great thing for the Netherlands, for Belgium, if everyone just doesn't look at the monetary value of it, the budgets. 7 hours trip, Pascal mentioned, is probably the longest trip, but that's nothing. I mean, teams in Spain, teams in France, they have road trips that are much longer, even though they have better budgets. But if you go back 30 years ago, some teams had big budgets in France and some had smaller budgets in Pro A and Pro B, and they managed to make these trips. And they had the stress of the teams going down and going to another league and not being able to pick up sponsors because they were in lower leagues. If the Benelux League decides that no team goes down, and they have patience and they have vision, 7 hours is not a problem. If you're at the bottom of the league, say in the first year, and you keep a strong foundation for developing the youth, a good coaching staff, and you're not worried 2 months into the season that you may lose your sponsor because you're in last place and the league is going to go down and you won't get the exposure that you need because you're not in the top league, then they can stay together and build on that. So it's endless possibilities with this. And everyone shouldn't just look at the money. If you have a smaller budget, there are so many players out there in Europe that you can actually bring into this league. The same way European teams are taking European players everywhere in Europe now. It's endless possibilities.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I'm curious as to the mission and the mandate of the league. Of course, we all know that every league and its success is based on their ability to have two traits. One, either it's a builder or it's a trader, especially at COVID-19 that has exposed a lot of the flaws in basketball, just globally. What do you think in terms of whether this new league and its potential will be based on its ability to be able to develop players and then transition to the NBA, or in its ability in terms of becoming either a builder or a trader or both?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think everybody was sort of touching in and around an interesting thing. I think Mario and Terence had talked about, kind of in and around talking around the criteria, and I think the leadership of who's actually running this league, similar, like my ideas of similar of what they've done in Germany, where the criteria of each clubs, they've developed a standardized infrastructure where each team has a practice facility, each team has their main hall or main gym or main game facility. But the key thing is how many of these clubs are going to own their own facilities, because I think the costs of what it is to rent and lease a facility through local government, I mean, that's costly. So the key thing is to be able to, I think, have the resources, your own resources, and own your own resources. I think the other thing is, the television, what's going to happen? Are they going to have like a television deal or arrangement? And I think what they can do is, I hope that there can be more games. So there's no reason why they can't play a game on a Wednesday, maybe, and a game on a Saturday or on a Sunday. I think oftentimes there's too much practice. I think players would enjoy to be able to roll into another game. You'd have, hopefully more exposure, more games, more gate receipt. And I think that these two factors, and maybe even a salary cap, which would probably have some strong rejection. But in order for the bottom teams, if there's 20 teams, to sort of build something over 3 to 5 years, it'd be interesting to maybe just, off the top of my head, I don't know what, but maybe 100,000 euro salary cap for foreign players. Instead of having 6 foreign players, maybe you have three good foreign players that are good character guys, good leaders, good players, of course, because that's important, but also can help to develop and be a real positive impact and be leaders in the locker room for the younger domestic players.
Yes, indeed. Pascal, I'm going to make you a chess pass. You got the ball now.
Let's have Terence go. I'll go last this time. I'll pick my last.
Well, kind of repeat the question in a sense.
What would be the mission or the mandate of this new league? Be it a builder or a trader, or how do you see the vision to be?
Well, I guess what I think isn't really important, but one thing that I think is important is that they should have more games. Of course, twice a week, mandatory. I think maybe Tuesday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, no matter, but at least 2 games a week instead of 1 game a week. When you have that many teams, you need to play more. It's interesting. Tom mentioned about the facilities. The facilities are important, but I don't envision at all the Dutch teams or the Belgium teams owning their own facilities, because even in France, where the budgets are much greater, most teams don't own their own gym. Uh, I don't think there is a team that owns their own facility. So that would be difficult. But
In a
he's right
perfect
that
world.
you need a vision that includes having access to the facility with budgetary support from the city or the government to develop the youth, and then to have the facilities that you can use, top class facilities for professional players. I think they need to come together with some kind of travel arrangement or agreement through sponsorship to help these smaller budget teams get to these 7-hour trips that they may have to, or the 2 games a week travel plan. That could be included into their budget. I don't see, just to, not to go against Tom, but salary cap happening. I wouldn't advise that, because it would be hard actually to get players to come, especially players who have a good year, maybe in France, or a down year, in, a good year in the Netherlands, or Germany, or in Finland somewhere. And then you come to a league like the Netherlands, the Benelux, and it's a better league, and there's a salary cap, and you can't increase your budget. Players play for money. What happens is, if a team like Rotterdam, for example, in a bigger city that has a smaller budget, if the management comes together with a decent plan, and the team does well in the league, and there is the TV rights. The TV is important, of course. Right now, we can't talk about the fans because of COVID for 2021. I don't think people are going to run to the gyms in the first year, but the games must be seen on television. So they have to put a television package together so they can sell this league and sell the players to everyone in this area. That would be key. They need a TV package. They need a travel package that they have to put together. They need to start to find ways to develop their youth players. I don't see players from Belgium and the Netherlands becoming, like France and Spain, a pipeline to the NBA. That's like a pipe dream, because even in 30 years, you can count the number of players on your hand of Belgian players and Dutch players that went to the NBA. I think it should be about developing the league, and a focus on developing the players as well, but not limiting the amount of foreigners just to develop the youth players, because that will never work also. In the Netherlands, teams have tried it, and in Belgium, they have tried it. And the players play, but they don't develop and become top players in Europe. They just become players in the Benelux League, in the Belgium League, or players in the Netherlands League. So I wouldn't limit the number of players. I wouldn't put a salary cap on. What you have to do is become creative in management. If you have a smaller budget, go to players in Pro B in Germany. Go to players to Pro B in France. Find a couple of youth European players in Spain or in France that have athletic ability that you don't have in the Netherlands players or the Dutch players, and add them to your club with their budget. And then, of course, you need to have quality foreigners, whether they're American, Canadian, from Australia, anywhere, or Eastern Europe, to bring them into the league, to develop the league. I wouldn't think, and I know it's a fact, and people must understand, Dutch players and Belgian players alone are not attractive for any TV market. You need these great athletes from other places. You need coaches to come in with different ideas instead of just having a Dutch coach or a Belgian coach. You need the Canadian coaches, you need the American coaches, you need the Yugoslavian coaches, maybe even some Spanish or French coaches, so they can have different styles of play and not everyone's copying each other. That's been going on for too long in these two areas. That's why it's boring.
Okay, ball is up in the air.
Let me dig into that, Tom. I kind of agree with Terence on some things, but to answer your question about trader or builder, I also think it has to be both, because otherwise you're not interesting enough on the business side, probably, and also not about sometimes about leadership and good examples like Tom already mentioned. But I think for the Belgian part, as far as I can speak for that, but also the Netherlands, it's very important that we take into account, or the clubs, that there needs to be some more opportunities for younger players and for young Belgium and Dutch players, because there are already some initiatives, and like Terence said, they tried it with several ideas, but at the end, yeah, it's not that so many, and it's I don't say that it's not good at the moment, but because there are some places where younger players are already playing, but I think we need an injection also in that part. So, but it needs to be on both sides. That I'm convinced of, and that's also the reason why I think that in the building of what they are doing right now, that there is maybe a serious gap, and I mean that I think that there are still opportunities to incorporate, and in which way I'm not certain about, because I cannot look into their heads to know what are maybe future plans. But I think it's necessary to also incorporate plans with the second division or something, with more around the development of all those younger players. Because in Belgium right now, we have it's not about that there is no talent, but the problem is, once they are 18 years old, you have to choose, or it's school or it's basketball, and there is nothing in between, and that's a big problem for talented players. And I think that there is more to do now, and if I should do something about that, then I would have look at some of the ideas to do something extra with second division, or with younger players. But okay.
Thank you, sir.
Pascal.
Okay. As far as your question, if the league should be builder or trader, I think, first of all, builder. And if that's going well, they will become a trader, where now players can get picked up into Germany, France, Spain, or whatever. I totally agree with Terence on the travel package, because, okay, I mentioned the 7-hour trip. I agree. It's not the 7 hours, but it's the extra money the teams have to pay for buses and an extra driver and maybe overnight stay and whatnot. That's gonna hurt those teams. So I think the league should have a package where teams can benefit from big discounts from that. Also the gyms. Exactly. Nobody owns their gym. But the problem is that there's a big discrepancy in what the use of the gym costs to a team. I remember when we were in Liège was paying a lot of money to practice and play in that gym, whereas Mons, whose gym is equally as nice as that one, as the one in Liège, didn't pay any money to use that gym. So on the team's budget, it makes an enormous difference. So that gym access is also something that needs to kind of be leveled for any team in the league. Otherwise, there's a competitive advantage when you look at it. Now, here's the big dilemma of the BeNe League. I think it needs to be a builder league, and I think we all agree that the teams need to develop their young players and even other players that come in. But if you want to develop players, you need a coaching staff. You need quality coaches. You need coaches that are willing to put in hours and time to work with these players and make them better individually. Now, when you look at all the teams in Belgium, for example, everybody's cutting back on their coaching. So the Belgium league, and I think probably the Dutch league is going the same way. It's if I'm cheaper than the next guy, I can get the job as a coach. And so the teams, since teams are mostly run by people that are not really basketball people, they're looking at black on white numbers, and they're going, okay, well, this coach is cheaper than that coach, so let's take this one. And so you start bringing down the quality of your staff. You start bringing down the work hours that your staff can produce to make your players better. Then you're not going to develop players. And to tie into that, the discussion about the foreigners, I've always thought that this discussion about the foreigners, it's a fake discussion. Because years back, I think about a good 10 years back, there were 8 foreigners allowed per team. And then they took it down, and then it was only 6 or 5. And everybody said, yeah, more Belgian players could play, so we're going to have more better Belgian players. That's the biggest BS you've ever heard or seen, because the only thing you create with mandating more Belgian or Dutch players on a team is you create an entire generation of entitled players. Players that, because teams don't find enough homegrown players, they receive a spot on a pro team, they receive a car and an apartment, they think they're a pro, they're overpaid because teams have to pay these players money that they're not worth, and you create an entire generation of players that don't know how to hurt themselves, that don't know how to go the extra mile, that are just happy to be sitting in a car that has a basketball on it and drive through town after practice and hope to pick up a couple of girls. I'm saying this in a little funny way. Basically, that's it. Okay, and so when you will increase the number of Belgian players and Dutch players in this league, you're going to create players that can play in this league, but the gap between the players that can play in this league and can play in a higher league will only get bigger. And like Terence said, we're not going to send a guy straight from Belgium to Spain. He's going to have to go to a next step, try to perform there, and then maybe get a chance. Best example is Hans van Wijn. Hans van Wijn is now in France. If he can perform in France pretty well, he will be more ready to take the next step somewhere. And we're talking about a very small number of Belgian players and Dutch players to be able to do that. So, yeah, that whole that's my take on it. You know, the problem between having to build, but teams don't understand what to do to build their own players. And I don't see anything changing in this BeNe League starting, and the way teams approach, okay, what kind of budget I'm going to put into my coaching staff, and how can I create a coaching staff that's going to develop my guys. So I think that's a little bit of the, you know, the contradiction in this whole league starting up.
Yeah, I mean, certainly just before we get into sort of a crossfire or engaging, you know, and sharing different views, I'm just going to rebound off your feedback earlier. Then I guess the question rises: should teams, or whether it's fair or not, you be the judge, but meet certain financial criteria in order to be part of the BeNe League? And then perhaps the possibility of what Mario said, a second tier or a second league option that may be there for the teams that can't meet that higher level of financial criteria.
Go ahead, Terence. You can start.
Well, I think everywhere in Europe, the leagues have set criteria, financial criteria, to be in the top league. So they should set one. What it is, don't ask me. But there should be amount of money in your budget in order to participate in the BeNe League. You should have it. And they should be able to prove that, because you need that to pay the salaries, the travel. That should be an objective. There must be a criteria for that. As far as the second league, I think a few years ago in the Netherlands, when they had serious financial problems, and similar to Belgium, they were having fewer teams that could play in the first league. They started like a 23 and under league or something like that. And that is something that you can use to try to develop youth players or younger players. Instead of kids having to stop at 18, you could give them a little carrot and say you can probably play to 21 or 22 and give them a small salary, and possibly, if they're creative, working with the cities that you have the teams through the Mary and through some sponsors to have some internship for jobs to help these guys actually become semi-pros, and the better players become full pros to play in the higher leagues and in the higher division. It's not just youth and then a pro, which is the problem that for the Benelux and Belgium and Netherlands, it's been a problem in the last 15 to 20 years. You start out as a young, talented player, and we know most of the kids are talented when they're 16, 17 years old. And then by 18, they have to make a decision. Do you go to university, or do you try to play as a professional in your country or abroad? Or do you go to university if it's possible? If you don't go to university and you still want to be a pro and you're a late bloomer per se, then there should be a league for guys that are over 18 where they get a taste of what it's like to be a professional and possibly a job, an internship. 30 years ago, the best players in Den Bosch, National Den Bosch, which at the time was one of the best teams in Europe, 60% of the top players on our team that were Dutch had jobs. And they got the jobs through the city or through the sponsors of the club. So they were actually semi-pros who became professionals. And then by the time they're 30, 32 years old, they were already prepared to work when basketball was over. So if they have that kind of vision for the youth players, there's motivation to play after 18. And there's possibility to also work if basketball doesn't work out for you.
Smart, Terence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah.
Those are the things that they should put in their budget, and they should work with their sponsors to do, because these are business people like Pascal mentioned earlier, these people who really don't know basketball. In a sense, they know basketball, they know management, but internship for a talented young player and teach him a trade is also helping the club, and it's helping the kid as well.
Yeah, and at the same time, Terence, also internship for coaches. It's the same. It's I think the same because
well, that's why you have the youth players, and you have that 23 and under. That's the internship for coaches.
Yeah. I think what Pascal said was right on the spot. Huh? It's incredible if you see how some of the teams are led. Huh? What kind of professionalism. In some teams, there is even no professionalism, huh?
Right. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to criticize management and coaches because that's not what it's just. It's an idea that I think that a league like this can use, and you have to become creative when you don't have money. You have to find ways where everyone can benefit. You have to find ways to draw the interest of the fans and also the TV. You need to be able to promote this club. People go after sponsors for money only, and it shouldn't just be money only. It could be a sponsor that has the finances that will enable teams to travel,
yes,
and not have to put that money into their budget. It could be a sponsor that isn't capable of paying a big salary to a youth player, but can give him an opportunity to work at a minimum wage European job for, say, part-time and practice, and then give him off when he has to travel.
I think that's a nice intake, because it also, my point I made earlier about entitled young players, I think that kind of solves that problem, because now the kid really has to learn what it is to work. You want to be a basketball player? Okay, here's your opportunity. You're going to work hard on the court, and you're going to have a job where you need to work. And I think that can only help in their development as a player too, because I'm sure that a player that goes through a process like that has a totally different mindset than the same talented player who thinks that everything is owed to him. So you're talking about development, that fits right in there. I think that's a great point.
It's a good idea, Pascal, but also at that moment, then you need also a coach who can put that in the right perspective, huh? and be there if it's necessary. And then you can, ask a lot of things, but there are also sometimes moments that you have to be a father figure on that moment. So I think it's both of them then. Eh?
Well, but to my point of teams and management not recognizing the importance for a coaching staff, there you go. And I think that's not shooting at like I said, these owners. They're looking at black on white numbers. But you have to have somebody in your organization, whether it's your GM or your sports director, that can take care of talking into that owner and making him recognize the importance of a quality staff. Because when you look at especially in a league that's going to grow, if you're starting off next year in that league, and as a team you have a vision. Okay, let's look at 3 years, and let's look at what can we do in these 3 years. You're not going to let somebody do the plumbing in your house. That's 100 euros cheaper than the next guy if you're not sure that he's a quality a plumber. So I think if you can get quality coaches into your program and they cost a little bit more, then you take a little bit of your player budget down because
Lost the sound.
I think we lost Pascal a little bit.
Pascal, for a loose
Did you guys
ball.
hear what I said?
No, we lost you for like 3 seconds or 5 seconds.
A minute there. We lost you.
I was saying that the management needs. Oh shit!
Not there.
No, we lost him, Tom.
All right. So, there you are. Are you back, Pascal?
Yeah, let somebody else talk. I'm talking too much, and my connection just throws myself out. So go ahead.
I mean, everyone's got some, wonderful ideas, because we're all coaches here. Panel, I think we're all on the idea. I think the criteria that what I was talking, the standardized criteria for all the clubs was, and then of course with to allow the budget to be able to bring in legitimate coaching staff and coaches that know how to work with these young players at that stage and age of development. They know what it is to do and the right things to do, and to be able to commit to the ongoing process. I know in Belgium, I think the long-term athletic development model and the training offered to coach in Belgium, I think the standard is a little higher than it is in the Netherlands. So I think there has to be a way to hopefully improve that in the Netherlands, also improve it in Belgium, but to put serious, committed, ambitious people in these on the coaching staffs, led by a very good, experienced coach that knows how to work within this type of philosophy and model to develop. I think this is the most important, because without that, I think. And then coming back to the idea about, Terence was talking about an under 23 team, but another some teams in the first division, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sweden, I think the Stockholm 08 that essentially has a group of young players that they use this team as a development team. I think they discussed it years ago. Edge also. So I think the idea of having the 20 teams and having a promotion, if the philosophy and the vision is correct, then it should allow teams with these good staffs and appropriate staff and resources to be able to do this and to domestic the young players over time on a high.
Yeah, no, thanks. Did everybody are we all connected? Everybody hearing everybody?
Yeah, I hear now. I hear better.
Anyone want to add to that, or I can ask the next question?
Go ahead.
Okay. So then the question comes to mind is, then how would you create your roster? In terms of roster spot allocation, we're talking about, okay, would you allocate one spot for a potential NBA project spot? Would you allocate spots for national team players? Would you allocate spots for your, obviously certain number of import players, as well as young players, U19 players, so that you don't get into too much into this sense of entitled player of, like Pascal said, entitled players because the rock, spots are given.
Go ahead, Pascal. Or
well, I think the way you allocate your roster is going to depend on your budget. You talk about NBA potential in a national team player. I can already cross off a number of teams in this league that are not going to get that. So I think you have to identify. First of all, your club where you're coaching. Identify yourself where you're at, where you want to be, and then in function of the budget, go out and try to get what you can. I think one thing I would definitely do is the players, not my Belgian players or my whatever homegrown players. I would want to go out and really get difference makers there. Because I think one of the problems that both of the leagues have been facing over the past 10 years is that the level of the foreign players has gone down a lot. And so, and again, you're with this discussion about your Belgium or your Dutch players, but I'm sorry. If you are a young Belgian player and every practice you have to guard a very, very good foreign player, you're going to get a lot better than going through a season with an average all player where you go up against. So I would definitely try to raise the level. And okay, I know budgets are going down, but I think there's enough players on the market that can go. And that you can get as a team, so I would definitely do that because the discussion where you want to get, let's go all Belgium guys and we give them a chance. I don't think that's going to cut it. I think your Belgians are going to benefit from better quality foreign players for sure. So I would definitely allocate positions to better quality foreign players, and then you never know, you might get lucky, obviously, but I don't believe too much in any NBA potentials coming into any other teams except maybe Ostende at this moment.
Well, open floor, gentlemen.
Yeah, I totally agree with Pascal. I think that the biggest difference or biggest point, what we also see the last couple of years, is that teams are recruiting foreign players who are not making so much difference or no difference. And I think it's always better for those younger players if you have somebody on your team who can say, hey, okay, today go ahead together with your coach and give him some opportunities, but it's necessary that you get a player in your team who is able to make in a Belgium team like 25 or 30 points a game. But it's better to have two like that than 4 or 5 average players, because then you create nothing at the end. So I can go totally with Pascal.
I agree definitely with both. It's kind of unfortunate. I think that the NBA has decided in the last 25 years to take these prospects, what you call these young, talented prospects with potential, instead of players who are capable of doing things. So basketball in general has moved to this model of development, development, development. So you take a professional player, in 3 years, you're trying to develop a guy into being a pro. Whereas 30 years ago, you look anywhere in Europe, whether it was Finland, Holland, Belgium, France, Germany, you had ready-made professional players who were 23, 24 years old who could play. Of course, that pool has changed because the NBA has doubled in its size, but it hasn't doubled in players who are ready to play. It has doubled because of the young players they're taking. So all these players who are talented professionals, self-starters, ready to contribute and actually can assist these young players into becoming better players because they're already physically, mentally ready to be a top player to actually assist the coach in his development of players. We don't get in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and even in places like France now that often, unless you have a serious budget. I still remember my first week as a professional at 27 years old, no, 26, not even 27, in Europe. After 3 practices, we had a coach who was a national team coach, a champion in the Netherlands, a really good coach. And he came to me and said, "You see those 2 young guys? Show them those things that you know. Show them that move that you did. Help them." And that's what we learned as younger players 35, 40 years ago when we entered university from the seniors in university. And then when we became a senior, we were looking for an opportunity to have a professional career, whether it was in Europe or the NBA. Now you have guys who come to Europe who are seniors, who are still going through personal training and development with their coaches in university. And then in Europe, their coaches actually have to teach them how to play basketball all over again. And so they can't help the young guys because they don't know what to do. They don't even know how to train like a professional. They're not observing the young, talented player and trying to give them their knowledge to help the team. They keep it to themselves because they want to preserve a job. The fact that this league may not go down, the players can have some kind of stability and help. I remember we always helped the younger players because how we chose players at that time was you took a young, talented player that you had as a prospect, not a professional, but a prospect for your club, for the future of your club, a local player. You brought an American with the same skill set so that he can develop those skills and become a better player. You had foreigners who complemented each other with the talented local players that you have. So when you choose your player, the budget is important, of course. Then you need a serious player that can assist the coach and can assist the youth players too, with his skill set and his mentality as a professional player, not just a young prospect who you have to teach how to play. You take someone who's capable of doing the things that a professional player on your team needs to do to assist the team reach its objectives. Every team can't be a champion, of course, because you don't have the budget, you don't have the most talented players. You may not have the national team players. But if you assess your budget, your objectives within your league, where you want to finish this year, 3-year objective, and find players who can actually help the coaching staff, help the youth. I gave practices at 26, 27 with young players in the morning. The coach didn't have to stand over us all the time. We actually had our own routine. We had the coach's routine. And then the young players learned to develop their own routine and also work through the coach's routine as well. You take a young kid and put him in the gym today, who's a prospect, he's waiting for the coach before he even starts to do anything because he's not a self-starter.
Terence, this doesn't mean that you endorse what Kyrie Irving said about Steve Nash in terms of being a coach.
Look, it's not. I don't know what he said, and it's not about that. We always respected our coaches because the coach is there to help you. For me, the coach was the best thing for me because I wanted to be a better player, and I knew he was the guy who was we had to follow and lead. But it didn't mean that I didn't have knowledge of the game. But I never tried to force the coaching to change the way he thought. I just did whatever he asked so he'd have more confidence in me. And then saw that I understood what he was doing, but I had a little knowledge also. But you can't take players who are not professional and expect them to help the youth players or expect them to be capable of helping you reach your objectives. You can't take prospects.
Well, I'm just going to add to that, if I may. Terence, I think when you talk about the younger generation and the globalization of the NBA and how this developmental perspective approach to recruiting younger players and developing them, I think in a business sense, in the COVID-19 times of this new era of basketball, of an open market, this may actually provide a business opportunity for a lot of the professional leagues, across the world. So, just as we conclude our roundtable discussion here, I'm just wondering about your views, the direction the game group is going.
Can't hear you. I didn't hear your last question.
I'm just curious as to your views of the direction of the game is going, the NBA game.
I love the talented players. I love the prospects. I mean, they're capable of doing so many things, fundamental wise, physically wise. But basketball was played at the professional level 80% in the mind, what you see and how you think. And I just have a problem with guys waiting for someone to tell them how to become a better player. When you're 20 years old, for example, people still say that's young, 21, 22 years old. You've had enough practices, you've seen enough drills. You should know your strengths and know your weaknesses, that you can work on them also. And then when you see your coach, the most important thing for a player is to understand what's in the mind of your coach. You have to read your coaches and your coaching staff and also learn your players' strengths and weaknesses. And then find ways to get better at hiding their weaknesses and exploiting their strengths. And know what the coach wants when he's preparing you to play. Instead of these guys waiting to become better ball handlers. Show me a ball handling drill. Let me shoot the ball 50 times so I can become a better shooter. They don't focus on the mind of the coaching staff and the objectives of the team and the organization, the strengths and weaknesses of his teammates, so you can be like a player who assists your teammates become better players. It's all about me, 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 me. In Europe, especially the Benelux, this BeNe League, you shouldn't be taking these guys who are prospects in their mind, thinking they're going to be NBA players by the time they're 21, 22. You need to take these seasoned university players as foreigners or guys who played in other leagues in Europe who had responsibility of assisting the youth players become better, which means sometimes assisting in practices, which we did in the past. It also means being there, having individual meetings with the coach before practice and sometimes after practice. So he's a coach on the floor. Instead of the coach having to come in and have to do so much individual training for every single player. That's what people talk about budget, but years ago, all these teams didn't have a great budget, huh? They had players who were ready to become professionals, and they knew in order to keep their job and getting paid as professional, they had to, one, understand what the coach wanted to execute that. Two, assist the players to become better players so the players believed in them, and they had to show those players they believed in the players in order for them to fight for each other when they were there. Come with the right attitude and hopefully help the team reach its objectives, where winning objectives. Now guys come in and it's a total different mindset. It's a total different mindset. People don't think that way at all. Some people don't even talk to the youth players when they leave. Some of the foreigners come in, they don't even talk to the youth players.
Thank you. Terence, thank you very much. Let's pass the ball to other members of the team for a moment. So
Sorry about that.
thoughts here. Mario.
Yeah, it's wise words, huh, Terence? Tom, do you want me to answer on a particular question, or
your concluding thoughts?
Concluding thoughts. Okay, I think that probably the only way this BeNe League has a bright future will be if there are some goals and criteria pointed out regarding not only business sides but also regarding long-term ideas for younger players and for coaches. And I think that's a big challenge, because not so many people are thinking in that direction, probably. That are my concluding thoughts about what I hear today. So I think there's a lot of things have been put into place. It's a nice project, but maybe it can be a long-term, very good project if those things were into taken. Yeah, that would be my concluding thoughts.
Pascal?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I just wanted to say the same thing. Basically, when it comes to players, I think teams and coaches now have to deal with a generation of players that grew up with instant gratification. I want a PlayStation, I'll get it. Okay, you get it right now. I want a new iPhone. Okay, let's go. We get it right now. So that the sort of idea of having to work or save your money or do something before you can actually obtain what you want, I think it translates into basketball. And so you get players who don't make the reflection, what can I do for my team? But basically, okay, what can I do to get mine, to get a good stat line so I can get more money next year, so I can go somewhere else. So the first day to get to your team, they're already thinking about going somewhere else. And so I think that's a problem, but it's something organizations have to deal with. And so I think, especially looking at this BeNe League, I think the secret is a big word, but I think the area where the league can really differentiate itself from other leagues is to really focus on the development of the player individually and the development of the player as a team player. And I think then you can really make this league into something special where people know, okay, when we come in here and we recruit in this BeNe League, we know we're going to get fundamentally sound players who understand what team ball is, who know what the notion of an extra pass is, okay, and who are not just thinking about their own stats and their own personal accolades, and who understand that their own success will come through team success. And I think with the budgets being the way they are, I think that's going to be the way to focus, because when you look at Serbia, and I'm not talking about the top teams in the Serbian league, but the youth programs in Serbia and stuff, we're not talking a whole lot of money there. That's just guys coming in and grinding and working every day, learning how to play team ball, be responsible, and work before you receive something. I think that might be a good intake to start this league off with. Your mic is off, Tom. We can't hear you.
Oops. Yeah, no, I was. I'm curious about other people's I guess concluding thoughts. Thomas or anyone else want to add?
I mean, I think everyone has said everything quite well and quite eloquently. And for me, I just think about because I've sort of dedicated myself in the last 3 or 4 years to working with younger players
and boys. And I know all of us coaches, we know the impact what had inactivity and kids not being able to get on the court and practice and be I'm certainly in this region of Belgium that could give some hope and promise for the future that there can be possibly more opportunities for players to play on teams and get. I think that, so for kids, Mario had talked about those kids from say 17 or 18 years old to 20. You can imagine the impact that COVID on those 2 years of development, those very critical 2 years. Some kids have lost opportunities to maybe play that they were already planning on playing on a higher level. But they've lost not just 1 year, but maybe 2 years of development. So I just think that the announcement of the league I'm incredibly optimistic and excited for the opportunities, optimistically that more kids and players can aspire to play on a high.
Very good. We have just passed the hour mark. I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody here for coming and doing a roundtable discussion in the BeNe League. Love to invite you back for more roundtable discussions. I think there is a lot more to discuss here. Perhaps a part 2, if you will. But nevertheless, I want to wish everyone here good health and continued success. And let's stay in touch.
Happy holidays and best luck for everyone.
Merry Christmas.
All right.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Happy
Stay
holidays,
safe.
gentlemen.
Stay safe. Good seeing you guys. Huh?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao. Thanks,
Well, thanks for tuning into International Ball, a roundtable discussion on the BeNe League, and looking forward to staying in contact with you and updating you as this announcement evolves and takes motion. Hopefully soon on the court, and stay safe, and look forward to hosting another round of table discussion and discussing this further. Thank you.